Recording in progress.
Good morning. It is now 10 a.m. Councilmember Rao, it is my understanding that you will be presiding this morning.
Yes, that is correct. Good
Okay.
morning. Good morning. Welcome to our fiscal year 22 department budget hearings. I want to officially call the meeting to order. City Clerk Adams, can you call the roll?
Yes. Mayor William Bill Edwards, as well as Mayor Pro Tem Helen Willis, have family engagements and will not be present today. The Honorable Catherine F. Rao, District 1.
Present.
The Honorable Carmelita Gums, District 2.
Present.
The Honorable Naima Gilliard, District 4. The Honorable Corey A. Reeves, District 5.
Presently present.
The Honorable Councilmember Khalid, and I believe some are coming in to the meeting now.
I'm present.
Thank you. The Honorable Mark Baker.
Present.
And the Honorable Naima Gilliard, I believe you are present. Well, Madam Councilmember, we do have a quorum.
Thank you. If you would, let's get started with our proposed budget overview summary and go into followed by Destination South Fulton.
Yes, the presentation, I will introduce the city manager, Tammy Sadler-Jones, to introduce the staff that will be making the presentation today.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Good morning, council members. Good morning, staff. We are prepared to provide you with the fiscal year 22 proposed budget for the following departments: Destination South Fulton, Fire and Rescue, Municipal Court, Human Resources and Risk Management, Community Development, Code Enforcement, and Information Technology. Ms. Rachel Bembry, our interim finance director, will give you a overview of our proposed budget. Mr. Don Toms, the assistant city manager, will go over our capital improvement projects, and then we will begin with our departments, and we will begin with Christopher Pike, our economic development director. I wanted to just let the council know again that I sent out information to each of you on Friday. It is my transmittal letter that lays out to you a proposed balanced budget in the amount of 91.5 million for the fiscal year 2022. I laid out some initiatives that we are proposing in this proposed budget. Also, you have the budget calendar for the remainder of this budget preparation process. So we look forward to talking to you about the information in the budget. The staff, I want to thank them for their diligence and assistance in helping us to present to you a balanced budget for the proposed fiscal year 2022 fiscal year. And I'll turn it over to Rachel Bembry at this time. Thank you so much.
All right. Good morning, Mayor and Council. I will begin by giving you a summary of our general fund revenues, touching on significant fluctuations from the prior year, fiscal year 21 budget, as well as actuals. I do want to begin by letting you know we took a very conservative approach in examining our revenues and anticipated activity for the next fiscal year 22. So we'll begin with the first category, property taxes. This is based on the recommended 12.899 millage rate at a 98% collection rate. You will see this includes real property taxes as covered by that millage rate, as well as some other property taxes, including real estate transfer taxes and real estate intangible taxes as well. So that overall category is looking at about a 12% increase. The next category, motor vehicles, you'll see a bit of a significant increase here, 127%. This is in light of the actual year-to-date amounts that we've received in fiscal year 21 and only represents a 9% increase over the actual amounts received to date. The next two lines, your franchise fees and your local options sales tax. We're budgeting for an increase in these categories as well. Due to fiscal year 21 actuals pacing ahead of budgeted levels, as well as anticipated growth that we expect to see with the city of South Fulton in those sales tax and franchise fees. Moving on, we will look at business and occupation tax here. We are obviously budgeting for growth in business licenses, occupational taxes with FIB coming on board. And we are examining those numbers and sharpening those estimates as we go. Other taxes, you'll see a significant increase here as well. That's primarily attributable to alcohol beverage excise taxes. And again, that's a situation where already our fiscal year 21 actual amounts are outpacing our budget, and we anticipate growth in that area as well. Conversely, in the intergovernmental agreement revenue line item, you'll see a significant decrease there of 83%. This is attributable to the FIB intergovernmental agreement, where that revenue is no longer at this time anticipated to be received from FIB. And again, that's our conservative approach. We have removed that line here from our revenue projections. Fees for services. This category is budgeted with an increase, and this category includes a couple of different areas, including fees for services like providing police reports, as well as fire plan fees and recreation program fees. It also includes traffic camera revenue, which we are accounting 151% increase over the fiscal year 20 budget, but it's worth noting that it's a slight decrease from what we've actually received in fiscal year 21, because again, we anticipate and expect that slowly that revenue will decrease over time. I should have noted in the recreation program fees, we are including that programming is going to return to some level, and the departments will further address, their programming. Fines and forfeitures. This looks like a significant increase, but in reality, it's only about 18%, $3,000 from what our fiscal year 21 year-to-date amounts are showing. And that's just because things are getting, back on schedule with court scheduling. Your other revenue, the decrease you see here is attributable to the CARES money that was received in fiscal year 21 of approximately $4 million. So that's really more of a nominal difference in reality. And then the final item I wanted to have here is the budgeted use of reserves. This category shows how the one-time expenses of capital projects are being funded by reserves and not operating revenues or recurring revenues. Overall, our revenue totals are increasing by about 197%, but when you take out those one-time fundings like your capital funding and the CARES revenue that was received in fiscal year 21, and you look more at the operating level totals, your increase over your fiscal year 21 budget is about 16% and 19% over the actual amounts received year to date. So now that we've kind of gotten through the revenue summary, we'll briefly review the expenditure summary because the departments will be covering, their expenditures shortly. So if we'll flip, perfect, to the next slide. The expenditure slide here shows you the first, I believe, half of your departmental expenditures. And worth noting on this page, as you do see a decrease in your city clerk area just because of one-time professional service expenditures from fiscal year 21 being removed from the next year's budget. You'll see a significant increase in risk management. This was intentional to bring the general liability and property insurance expenditures into the risk management department. So you'll see an opposite adjustment in general services as well as in the other departments for that piece. And then also on this page, we see some growth in police and fire as anticipated as the city expands. Next slide, please. On this slide, just not much worth noting. Public Works and Parks and Rec and Cultural Affairs, as expected, has a little bit of increase due to increased activity as we get back to some sort of normal. And then on further down in the line, worth noting, you'll see a decrease in the planned contingency as well as a slight increase in the amount set aside for blighted properties. And then also a significant increase in your capital investment there. So you'll note also a few new categories, and this is designed to help us better identify and allocate costs to the specific service levels. So overall, the city has a modest increase of about 21%. But when you take out, again, those one-time capital transfers and all those one-time expenditures, you're looking at an operating increase of only 16%. So again, we've been very thoughtful and conservative in putting together the departmental expenditure budget for you as well. So no, that was quick, but I know they're going to go in depth with you here in a moment. So at this time, I will turn it back over for the department presentations.
Before we go into the presentations, Council Member Khalid had a question.
Okay.
Yes. Thanks so much for clearing up that because it looks like a big jump in the budget, but you're saying that big difference that we're seeing, only about 16% of that is sustainable over time. That's correct.
Correct.
And I noticed, if you could go back to the slide that showed the council budgets, I noticed that there was a decrease in that. Could you tell me what that decrease reflects?
Let's see. Most likely fluctuations in estimates of your insurance and benefits. Those things fluctuate as our rates change, and so the operating budget is maintaining the same level at $55,000 for each and every district, but the personnel expenditures will fluctuate as insurance and benefit rates come in for the employees allocated there.
And then this is my last question. It's kind of a tough question. My apologies, but we hear every year that the budget that's being proposed is a conservative estimate, and it seems to be the case without fail that every year by the mid-year we were not conservative enough, and we end up having to make further adjustments. So I'm just wondering, how is this year different?
Well, I'm sorry, but I can't necessarily speak to those prior years and the approach that was used there, but I'm just referring to my approach and coming in and just looking at the data. So I examined, the revenue trend from the incorporation, so 2018, 19, 20, and then our 21 actuals, and really focused on that trend data to develop the recommendation and projections for this fiscal year. Because budgets are merely estimates and they are dependent upon whoever is making those estimates, I didn't focus on those prior budgets when I was I reviewed them, but I didn't focus on them as I was preparing my recommendation for these revenue projections. So I can only speak to my presentation here, and I'm sorry I can't provide more information on the past.
No, it's fine. Is the presumption? This is my final question. Is the presumption in this budget that we will be in COVID through June of next year, March of next year? How did you factor COVID into your budget calculation?
So, and we can also ask this question specifically for departments as well that were heavily affected, like Parks and Rec and some of the others. But it is my understanding that their recommendations, their requests that were considered by management and finance were that they would be operating at the existing level. So that would be limited services as they are now.
Right.
Obviously we anticipate getting back to full growth at some point, but we did not necessarily go back to full growth in every area.
And in our revenue, I understand the departments, but in our revenue collection, which was down in some areas during COVID, are we anticipating that same level of revenue collection for 2022?
I'm first going to have to tell you it depends. In some revenues where we didn't see hits in with COVID like we anticipated seeing, for example, sales tax was stronger through COVID than originally anticipated. So in that case, I did go closer to pre-pandemic levels, whereas other revenues such as recreation program fees were more significantly impacted and will continue to be because of the limited service they're providing. We did not go back to full pre-pandemic projections there. So yes and no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. In the queue, we have Councilmember Baker, then Gumbs, then Gill. You're in that order, please.
Thank you for recognizing me. And thanks for your presentation up to this point. I have a question regarding two things. First, council budget. Council budget was altered during the pandemic prior to there was any knowledge of a CARES Act, or it was even created. I think we gave up about 10,000 from our budgets. And then later, we learned of the CARES Act that was supposed to be the concession made for those COVID relief funds. Has that been considered since there was a CARES Act to replenish council's budget back to what has been the previous years? Is my first question. And my second question is, you advised that the camera funds were expected to go down. And I'm just interested in what are the contributing factors that leads to that assessment, given that over the past 3 months, school has been out. And now that everybody is really back, to me, it seems that it would increase, especially since we haven't done a full out education campaign as well.
Can I jump in for a minute?
I'd be glad to answer those questions. Don, did you?
Yeah, I just want to jump in and answer just part of the question. This is Don Thomas, Assistant City Manager. In terms of some of the council budgets, as we were going through the prior 8 months, I spoke to several council members and mentioned that there were some items that was currently being spent from council budgets that truly should be functions of public works in other areas. So we made some adjustments, not per se to council budgets, but to public works in other areas such as litter control, various trash, calming devices, other areas that we saw that council members were using up portions of their allocated budget money. We kind of looked at that as putting it where it truly needs to be. Again, that wasn't a reflection of increasing or decreasing council budgets, but moving forward, some of these areas that I saw a few council members spending $10,000 and upwards on should be shifted over to public works. So I just wanted to add that as a side note.
But would that be considered overwhelming amounts of our budget? If it's just 10,000 on some of 7 people's budget, that wouldn't be an overwhelming. And I believe council that's the only thing that council has discretion over when it comes to spending. So I guess my question still remains, were there ever any thought into replenishing our budgets?
Hey, Rachel, would that be a part of, well, I know this is not, council budgets aren't revenue generating, and we can use our American Rescue Plan money to replenish any revenue loss. But seeing that, from what I'm hearing, their budgets were decreased by $10,000. Would that be an area that we can include that $10,000 back in and take, the remaining from the American Rescue Plan money, if that makes sense?
So if what I'm hearing is correct, so the council budgets based on the personnel estimates did decrease by about $7,000. I do concur with, Mr. Tom's statement regarding, moving. I can confirm that we did, move and better allocate expenditures to their proper functions like public works, which did naturally give cushion to some of or increase the amount for those operating budgets. But they did all stay at $55,000 for their revenue budget. And we did meet with every department, including council, to discuss these. I think that at this time, I would recommend that we add that to kind of the list that we'll be formulating throughout these hearings and discussions. And that, once we have that list in its totality, that then we can look at that and make recommendations based on everything. But I will absolutely note here the desire to increase by that $7,000 for each council district.
And is it clear that it was 7,000? Because it's my understanding it was 10.
Well, I'm just taking the total 189,487 from fiscal year 21 and subtracting the 182,358 from this year. So that's the number I'm coming up with, but I'll certainly check it and confirm.
Yes, I'm pretty sure it was 10. And again, many of us don't have those same allocations to litter that's used in our budget. So just keep that under consideration. And as far as the cameras, please.
In the camera revenue, excuse me. That line item, we did decrease it very moderately, less than 10%, simply because that is the trend we are seeing. It has been decreasing over the past few months, and we expect that we'll see, a slight bump with school traffic starting back. But again, after a month or two, as those fines and forfeitures begin to hit and those tickets begin to be paid, that we will see that decrease then continue. So we do expect to see a bump, but we don't expect it to be a prolonged increase.
I guess that was my concern. The decrease that we've been hearing about, nobody added that school was out, given that decrease. So of course, revenue would be decreased if, school is out.
Correct. So, Councilwoman Gumbs, did you have anything else, Councilmember Baker?
No, ma'am, I yield. Thanks.
Councilwoman Gumbs?
So good morning, and thank you for your presentation. I guess the first thing for me, and I think Councilman Baker kind of touched on it, I'm looking at the district budgets, and it shows like for fiscal year 2021, that District 2 is down by 10. Now, is that the transfer of money to Public Works? I don't understand the difference here that's noted.
I'm looking this up. Council District 2. Okay. Please say again what you're looking at. I see a 2% increase in Council District 2.
So for fiscal 2021 where it's amended, and
Mhm.
most of the council districts are at that 189. It's showing that District 2 is 179. Don't know if that is an error or if that is the money that was transferred over to Public Works.
No, it does appear to be an error.
Okay.
I'm just checking that for you briefly, but it does appear to be an error.
Okay. Well, I guess the next question would be, if you go to the next page where it shows departments.
Okay.
Where you have the Downtown Development Authority. So fiscal 2021 amended means, and there's a dash there that there were no funds available, but we are in fiscal 22 trying to propose 150 for the Downtown Development Authority.
That's correct.
And for the other ones as well. Okay, I just needed a clarification on that.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Hello.
Councilwoman Gilliard.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your presentation. I have a few questions, and I want to start out with the budgeted use of reserves. I want to know how using the reserve money for operating, how will that impact the balance of our reserves, and in terms of what percentage would be remaining? Could you answer that first question for me, please?
Absolutely. First, one clarification, though, a very important clarification is that we will not be using reserves for operating. That is unacceptable, and I would never recommend that. So do want to be very careful about the terminology we use. You only want to use one-time revenues or one-time funding items for one-time expenditures or expenses. So it would not be advisable to use reserves for operating, but we are recommending to use those reserves for the capital items. And I did perform an analysis of fund balance and do have that information in regards to the percentage. Bear with me and I'll provide that to you. We will, after the, I'll have to make sure that I have the right form here to provide you that information, but I did do that analysis and we are above the recommended level. So we made sure that the recommendation did not drop us below the required levels of reserves.
And that reserve recommended amount, Rachel, is 3 months, is my understanding,
Correct.
based upon GASB. Yes.
And my further question regarding it, if it's not being used for operations and it's being used for capital, generally, what type of capital items?
We will be definitely, Mr. Toms will be covering that in the next segment of the presentation. So you'll see those capital projects shortly.
Okay, so I have a couple more questions. Other revenue decreased significantly. Why so?
That was CARES funding that was one-time revenue received in fiscal year 21 that we do not anticipate receiving in fiscal year 22.
Okay, and contingency has been reduced significantly to $100,000, and so what plans do you have during the year in case we do need contingency funds, which we usually do? How do you anticipate being able to increase it?
Well, we have left some level of contingency, and we've been mindful that we have legal contingency or contingency for litigation in the legal budget. And so based on that, as well as other just anticipated activity and discussions with management, it was felt that the contingency budget could be reduced.
Okay, and then my last question is capital. The capital amount, what do you anticipate using the capital budget for?
Mr. Don Toms will go over that in the next segment of the presentation.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you.
And also,
Thanks.
Councilmember Gilliard, we included the list of proposed capital projects in the with the transmittal letter that was sent to the council on Friday. So we do have a attachment to the email that lists all of those proposed capital projects.
Okay, thank you so much.
Councilmember Reeves.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Just a couple of questions here. When you say going on the transfer of stormwater fund for $445,000, what is that for?
Right. We had anticipate revenue sufficient to cover the expenditures in the stormwater funds. Primarily those, I can give you details in regards to what those revenues are, but we are in the transfer for the 445 is a staff allocation. We're supporting the operations. The transfer increased to 445 because we're supporting the operations of that stormwater fund, including personnel and operating expenditures, as well as some capital expenditures in that fund.
Okay, because we have some drainage issues that plagues the city, and I just want to should that be increased to potentially handle some of that to offset that cost? So I'll leave that to y'all to go back and to look at, and you can come back later with an answer for that. But I would appreciate that being considered. Second question about the court, municipal court.
Mm-hmm.
Can I see the slide, please? So, municipal court, so it's a decrease and to the proposed budget. Do we have a backlog in our court system?
No, this is an increase from 1,000 to 15,000 in our municipal fines and forfeitures.
So from the amended from 813,000 to the FY2022 proposed of the 785,000, that's an increase?
That's expenditures.
That's expenditure.
Yes, sir.
You're asking about expenditures. Okay, yes,
Right.
and those will be covered in the department.
Okay, so is there a backlog in our municipal courts?
I would have to defer to our municipal court clerk for that response.
But to answer that question, I think she would probably say, yes, we're always trying to keep up in municipal court.
Okay.
Councilmember Reeves, I know LaDawn Jones will talk about this in detail, but I think a big portion of that decrease is due to contract cost.
Okay.
There's some contract cost savings.
Okay, I just want to be clear on that. Okay, good deal.
Councilwoman Brown, I'm having a problem getting back to Novus. I have one quick question, if that's okay.
Go ahead, proceed.
Okay, I just wanted to make the comment that you were talking about money being spent out of council budgets for public works items. And I can't speak for other council people, but it might be the same as it has been for me. When Public Works does not have money in their budget to do some significant things, especially as it relates to a cleanup or, our beautification project, I've used money out of my budget for that so that the district won't look so bad. So just keep that in mind, that that is really, when there's that type of need, that's usually why council people use their budgets. So I'm glad to see that Public Works budget is increased, and I'm can't wait to see how it's been being increased. Thank you.
And if I may, thank you, Councilwoman. If I may also respond to the follow-up to your question in regards to the fund balance, I was able to pull up my analysis, and we'll note that we will go from 5.1 months in reserves to 4 months in reserve. So we're still above that recommended level of 3 months in reserves.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a follow-up question. I saw the various funds. Is there funds earmarked in terms of revenue projections for the public art fund?
Yes, so the Public Arts Commission, as I understand, receives 3% of the amount received by the general fund for the hotel motel tax, and that has been budgeted for in their budget. We have created a specific line item in their expenditure budget for that allocation.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? If not, we'll go ahead to the next presentation. Let's tee up the next presentation. Thank you.
The screen. Did I get to the screen?
Good morning, Council. This is Donald Toms again. And I'm going to walk through the capital expenses. And as we are going through this, I'd just like to just note so that everyone, I guess, is just reminded that the majority of the items in the capital expense items are items that that reach the purchasing threshold that will need to be put on a future council agenda. So just because you see it here does not mean the city and staff is automatically going to move forward with these purchases, that the majority of these purchases will be brought back to a future council item for consideration. So with that, the big one is right there at the top, and that's our enterprise resource planning system. We discussed that a little bit during our retreat meeting. That's our ERP system, which is the future backbone of the city's software of moving forward with integrating a more robust software system that is listed under finance. Under information technology, it's our routine new computer replacement. Communications are some of the items that have been discussed over time, and those are those digital monument signs at key locations in the city, and also the wayfinding signs, which will direct you to various points of interest throughout our city and throughout our various districts. Those are the main items in communication. When we get to police, it's a lot of the equipment to support the officers. As we know, for every vehicle that we have and every officer that comes on board, there is some equipment such as the Tough Books and Surface Pros for the new hires, and some of those would also be some replacements of the equipment. It's not shown out, but I think in your more detailed packet, a lot of the capital expenditures are not just for fiscal year 2022 budget, but there's also a 5-year projection. So some of the costs will hit in year one of the 5-year budget, and some will be throughout the 5-year process. So then we also have the vehicles. When we voted a few months ago to purchase new vehicles, we alerted the council that at some point in 2022, we will need to replace some of the original cars and vehicles that were brought over from Fulton County. So that is in there. And the equipment for the vehicles that we have recently purchased is noted in there also. As we move down, we have a dive response unit, equipment for that. As you know, with some of the recent annexations, we've inherited more of the river that divides us from our neighboring county. I forget the exact length of that river, but it is several miles. So we are looking at a response team between the police and fire department to gear up for that. There is a robot in there that is projected out, and that is for bombs and other type of incidences where you would not want to put a human life in harm's way. You would use technology for those type of situations. Again, we are also looking at our neighboring communities because we want to maximize our resources. There was the command vehicle that was placed in there, and that looks like it was projected out. Since I do not see it for the 2022, but you should have the 5-year capital projects. Fire department, a lot of this is dealing with some additional items within our station 14, and the training tower and items dealing with training. We also discussed at a prior meeting of bringing in some smaller vehicles to give us some more life expectancy on our larger vehicles that are 600,000 and over. We discussed some of the rescue vehicles. A lot of our calls do not involve fire, and they involve more rescue type situations. It's more maneuverable to drive a rescue type, which would be something in the range of a Ford F-350 with the box chassis a little bit bigger than an ambulance that would get out there to be able to provide rescue type of operations for vehicle incidents, or that individual who may have gotten injured in the yard or one of our parks and does not require a fire rescue. There's also a mini pumper, which is a smaller type of unit that can be used for both rescue and for some firefighting apparatuses. So that's the bulk of the fire request. Public Works, I do want to note that in this year's budget, as we hit the individual departments, you'll notice that Public Works has expanded. We are moving into our first year of a little bit of a hybrid model. As you know, we've been under contract with a contracted service to do a lot of our public works. This year, to have a quicker potential response and to take on some additional projects, we have expanded the role of Public Works versus increasing the contract that we currently have. So some of this equipment is due to the expansion. Other is just due to age of facilities and equipment. For example, that second item, fueling station upgrade. As many of you know, we have a fueling station at Plummer, the Plummer Road Fire Station. That equipment is aged, and we're looking at replacing that equipment. And then you'll see bridge maintenance is citywide, which is a huge expense. And again, we're hoping that there's some federal money and grants to help offset some of these capital projects. But in the event that that money does not come through, it is sitting there. Another portion of the Public Works, you'll see some specific projects such as the Fairburn Road sidewalk upgrade, the Mooney Road Bridge replacement, and a few other bridges. The old National Highway sidewalks is listed in there. So that makes up the bulk of Public Works, in addition to the equipment that is needed for taking on some additional services. You'll see the dump truck / dump trailer. That's so that we can react a little quicker and on weekends to anything that is sitting on the side of the road that we have to grab off. We will have the equipment to do that independently of our contractor. Various equipment, the grappling truck is needed as we've seen some of the debris on the side of the road. Having a piece of equipment that could help us in a timely manner remove some of that debris. There's also other various pieces of equipment, simply the lawnmowers and also some information in there for the street sweeper that has been requested, backhoes, and the plotter is a computer device for Public Works. For Parks and Recreation, we have the chairlift. There was a request at Sandtown Recreational Center to help individuals get from one floor to the next. So we have in there the cost to help move that along. Again, with aging fleet, we have some vehicles to pull the equipment. If we can go to the next slide. We also have other items to assist with maintaining the field due to the age of the current equipment. So most of that is to maintain, such as the John Deere bunker rake that I believe is primarily used for our baseball fields. And then other items just to maintain the facilities. Now, again, in this upcoming budget, we are looking at maintaining the field and rec areas, but looking at outside contracts to help maintain the actual facilities. Going into cultural affairs, most of theirs is also due to aging technology within the beautiful theater that we have. One thing that was mentioned is having a green initiative throughout the city. So you're seeing an electronic charging station, and we would like to go ahead and install a fast charging station over there at the Southwest Cultural Arts facility. Again, if we can partner, there's lots of companies we can partner with, but we wanted to have the money there for the infrastructure, and if need be, to actually include the fast charging device for our community at that location, and then work with partners to expand it to other city facilities. And that's something else that we're actively exploring some grant funds and partnerships with. With CDRA, most of these are just due to the age of the equipment or land inspector vehicles, and also equipment for the land inspectors for what they need to get out there. A lot of the places they're going, the roads are not paved and they need a little bit more traction to get in there, in addition to just the age of the vehicle. So I believe that includes for the arborists, the 3 land inspectors, and some other individuals that are out and about in the field. Code enforcement is in a similar situation with their vehicles. We have expanded a little, some additional staff in code enforcement and require vehicles, and then equipment for the vehicles. And of course, everything will go through state contract and come back to the city council to approve at a later date. Stormwater was kind of a new area. This year, you'll see a breakout in a stormwater budget for the city. And being under MS4 guidelines, we are really looking at gearing up to provide a better level of service for our stormwater. On a day like today, I think everyone can appreciate how valuable it is to have an effective stormwater operations. So you see various equipment for those type of functions. You'll see again, the total citywide capital request is estimated at just a little over 14 million. In most capital budgets, these are presented as needed items. Noted that there's a likelihood that not all items would be purchased in year one, but if we were to go through with all the items as noted on this list, that would be the estimated amount coming from various sources. Some sources would be through purchased leases, and other options that Rachel will be happy to, I guess, address anything when it comes to the financing aspect of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Toms. I have a question, and then in the queue, I have Councilman Khalid and Councilwoman Gilliard. first question. What are we doing to deal with outdated equipment that may be sitting at some of our facilities that are obsolete in terms of clearing those out of the premise, off the premises? I think specifically I'm referencing Plummer Road Fire Station, as well as I know at the number of parks, we have some outdated equipment. What are we doing to move that equipment? And secondly, we talked about electric charging stations available to the public. How much of our fleet are we moving towards either being hybrid or electric?
Thank you for those questions. They're excellent questions. Let me start off with the cleaning. The cleaning is something that we have addressed with the various departments. I know Chief Jones is actively working on getting out as much of the equipment as possible that falls under the preview of the fire department. Having a new Parks and Rec director on board, we'll have him go over, because some of the equipment that is stored is under Parks and Recreation. It is my understanding that the vast majority is surplus quality, and we just need to present the council with a time frame to get that cleaned up. But we absolutely know that that is a hot button that needs to happen quickly to clean up our property, and I'm very much aware of that and working with the members. As far as the electric vehicles, as you know, right now, and I'm one that's been shopping for a different vehicle for a while. Electric vehicles right now are just now starting to hit the market a little bit harder than they've been in the previous year. Ford is introducing one of the first electric pickup trucks that is released later. In exploring those options, it appears that in year one, what we would purchase for an electric vehicle versus a standard gas vehicle is not quite double the price, but it is approaching that range. For example, some of the pickup trucks we're getting in the mid $20,000 range, where the electric pickup vehicle is set to be priced in the $40,000 range. So those items are definitely things that we're keeping an eye on. As state contracts start to include those, as production increases, that is certainly a direction we're looking at, as well as the vehicles in the fleets of the vehicles. Chevy just recently did a recall on one of their electric vehicles. So we're keeping an eye on the situation and just really looking at the cost from current year to anything in the future, and have a strong desire to include electric vehicles in the fleet. And right now we're starting that by gearing up with the charging stations that will both be available to the public and to the employees as we hopefully bring some electric vehicles online.
Thank you. And one more, just a general request. This capital forecast, I would love to see that our public or our procurement manager kind of put that out for people who want to do business with the city to understand the types of procurements that will be forthcoming. I think there's a great need for that. So please work towards that, if you will. That's a request for the city manager and assistant city manager.
Thank you. That's an excellent comment. And we can certainly get that posted on our city website, and where procurement has a footprint on our website. That way they know it's upcoming, and just to stay tuned for the bids.
Yes, ma'am. We'll certainly do that.
Thank you. Councilman Khalid.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for that question about electric vehicles. I'm going to come back to that. I do just want to make a note that it appears that our YouTube stream stopped about 10 minutes ago. And I did talk to, I did send a message to both James and our city clerk, but I just, for those people that I don't know might still be watching some kind of way, I just wanted to let that be known. And my question, piggybacking off of Dr. Rowell, was in addition to the individual charging stations, I hope that we could have some portion of capital expenses just for a how do I say it? And Assistant City Manager Toms and I have talked about it. You know, if you go downtown near the Tabernacle or Centennial Park, you'll see these sort of solar farms. It's like a outdoor parking lot that's covered, and the covering has solar panels on it to charge all of the vehicles, right, with solar power. And I know that can be those kinds of upfront expenses can be a lot, but the cost savings over time can be very significant. And also, I know that many of our departments and our staff love to drive trucks, but there's like a Chevy Bolt. It's not a sexy car, but it's a $30,000 electric car with a 200-mile range. And so as we are thinking about converting our fleet, I hope that we are looking at some of those options as well. I don't think that everybody needs a truck, and I do think that having maybe a north side and a south side solar power station where cars could be plugged up could really help save, especially if we get into any other instances like we had this year where, you know, there was a pipeline issue and gas went up. You know, it's in addition to saving money, I think that it's also, it gives the city more resiliency in terms of our infrastructure.
Yeah, I truly appreciate those comments. And I know I've reached out to several of the electric energy station providers to try to get some proposals. I know that various car companies are willing to partner because a lot of times when you buy an electric car, they'll give you free charging for so many years in a card. And I'm noticing more and more of those stations popping up throughout my ride into work. So, you know, as they become more common, it's definitely a footprint, and of course will drive down the cost. So it is something that we're working on, and something that I'm hoping to have a future committee to help us explore locations and needs and work with the business community through economic development.
Councilwoman Gilliard.
I have two questions. The first one is that the lighting for the theatrical lighting upgrade, is that a part of the lighting plan, the lighting master plan? I just wanted an answer to that question. And then my second question, and maybe I should be asking it during the parks presentation, I've consistently asked for the $300,000 that was cut from the URA for the Cedar Grove Park. And so should I be asking that now, or should I be asking that when we get to the parks?
I'll try to take both of them right now. The lighting one, that is for the theater lighting. It doesn't have anything to do externally or outside of the facilities.
Okay.
But based on the age of the building, it's still those hot projection bulbs. A lot of those bulbs have gone out, and the cost of replacing them, because no one's producing anything but LED lights these days, or I shouldn't say nobody, but people are shifting primarily towards LED lights. Mm-hmm. That by shifting over, as Councilmember Khalid pointed out, sometimes the investment up front will also give you savings on the back end in return. So we're looking at changing out a majority of the lights for functionality and for long-term energy purposes over to LED lighting sources. So that's the lighting upgrade. As far as the parks, you know, as you notice in our capital projects, I don't recall anything for facilities. We have discussed items of building some new precincts, some new fire stations, and, you know, also with parks. Those are things that once we get the master plan back from those parks presentation, those would go into some type of lease to not only purchase the property, if we have to purchase the property, but then to develop the property, and then that would be amortized over whatever the schedule would be, whether that be 10, 15, or 20 years.
I'm not clear, because
Okay.
the park has been in existence forever. The park has nothing in it. The park had a budget with $300,000 in it that was cut out of the URA. So my question is, should I be asking about that now while we're talking about capital expenses, or should I wait until the park's presentation?
Councilmember Gilliard, I wanted to address that. We had mentioned our director just started on August the 9th. He has not had an opportunity to assess that particular park. What I would like to do is have an opportunity for him to look at that park and make recommendations to us. And also, as Don mentioned, as we're going through the Parks Master Plan, look to see what our consultant, Carlos Perez, is recommending for that particular location. We can definitely, look at setting aside money in future years for any capital expenses that we may need out there. I know you mentioned that there's nothing out there. I don't know if there's plans right now for things like restrooms or walking trails. Those may be capital expenses that may need to be added to the capital budget, but in a future year when we've had a chance to really evaluate and determine what we need at that location.
It's been evaluated over and over again. And so I'm really, really, really upset about it. So we need to have this discussion offline.
Okay, well, you can share with us what those estimated expenses and plans were for that park. That would be very helpful for those of us, who are new to the organization.
I don't see anyone else in the queue. If you can begin to tee up the next presentation. And to answer questions, because I think a number of the parks have needs or their budgets were adjusted. I do think it is fair, given that we do have a new director, to have him come present, at a future date in the near future after he's had time to become acclimated. City Manager Jones, when will City Manager Jones, is there any schedule for Mr. Perez to come back in the near future to kind of brief us on where things are?
We have not met with him recently. We were waiting until Mr. Travis Landrum joined us. So we will be scheduling an updated meeting with him, and then I will be able to have a date for you when we will have Mr. Perez return.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have to say this. It was already in the URA plan. So if you look at the URA plan, everything that you need to know about that budget, about that park, is in that plan. That's number one. Number two, I have the Perez plan. So it's already in there. It just keeps getting extended and extended and extended. And so that's why I could continue to ask the question and it never gets answered. So
Councilwoman Gilliard, I don't want us to divert our URA conversation from that. I think every council person on here can say that there are things on that list that they, were adjusted. We talk about District 7 not having a park. So we have a number of issues. I think the reality is we have to wait. We have to give our new director the opportunity. But I do hear your concerns, and I think the city manager noted as well.
Yeah, especially when people are getting millions out of it.
Can you proceed and tee up the next presentation?
Dr. Rowe.
Yes.
Could I just ask one quick capital question?
Sure.
I'm so sorry. I know we talked in our retreat about ERP software. I don't know if that's considered a capital expense.
Yes, sir. That was the first item I talked about under finance, that $500,000 project.
Yes, it was the first item.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Pike, Destination South Fulton, you can begin.
Yes, good morning, members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to present our fiscal year 22 budget. We look forward to providing another active year of economic development in the city of South Fulton. If you would please go to the next slide. Just some highlights of what we expect to achieve in the new fiscal year. Our goal is to bring online the Collapse South on Old National. As you know, the mayor and council approved that lease. We'll be bringing some updates at the next meeting about that, but our goal is to have that up and running by the end of the calendar year, hopefully early fall at the latest. The other thing that we're excited to move forward with is our town center planning. Our goal for this upcoming fiscal year is to actually come together with the community to come up with a plan of what we want to have programmed in the town center, have that put into an RFP, and then begin the process of selecting developers to help us move that project forward. And so we look forward to doing that this coming fiscal year as well. Once we annex Fulton Industrial Boulevard, that caused us to go into partnership with the Fulton County. They were already working on an opportunity zone for the northern part of Fulton Industrial. They called us once they recognized that annexation was going to go through and asked us if we would partner with an opportunity zone. This is going to be a great opportunity because, as we know, the northern part of Fulton Industrial has a more aging infrastructure, more aging buildings. And so we will have to come up with a redevelopment plan for that area. As those buildings become more obsolete, we need to figure out how we're going to repurpose those buildings for future use. And so the opportunity zone will provide incentives for businesses to come into the area and create jobs and help us with our redevelopment efforts on the northern part of Fulton Industrial. And then the other thing that we want to work on is the accreditation for our two Main Street programs. For the Old National District and for the Red Oak District as well. We have started the process, but the process is a year-long process. And so we hope to get a lot of that accomplished here in this fiscal 22 year. Next slide. Some of our accomplishments from the previous year, from this current fiscal year, we have our tax allocation districts. As you all know, the mayor and council approved a plan in October, but that was just one of the first steps. We had then went and sent that plan to the tax assessor, and the board of assessors approved our plan and certified our TAD. Then we had to send it to the State Department of Revenue for them also to certify it. And both of those processes have been completed. And so we have officially set up two tax allocation districts that will be accumulating the increment from those districts starting in this tax year. And so we look forward to having some robust conversations with the school system and the county as we look forward to getting them to participate in the tax allocation districts. As you know, we have at this point only given the city's portion of the increment. We have to enter into an agreement with the county and the school system for their portion of that. And in order to set up a TAD, we had to create a redevelopment plan for the two TAD districts. And so that was approved by mayor and council in this fiscal year. Then we also officially adopted our economic development strategic plan, which a lot of the activities that we're doing moving forward are items that were encapsulated in that plan. And then we brought on board both our Red Oak and our Old National districts, our managers, and we look forward to formalizing more programming for those districts as we move forward in the 22 year. Next slide, please. Just highlights of the budget for Destination South Fulton. This year, you will see that our budget's set up a little different. We had asked that the budgets be separated out from the economic development and the two Main Street programs. The reason why we set the budget up that way is because as it relates to accreditation, it's easier for us to demonstrate that the city is financially supporting the Main Street program. So by them having their own budget, it helps us be able to report directly to DCA that they have funds allocated for their functional areas. And so you'll see I'll go through 3 separate budgets. This one's purely for economic development, so our activities related to the things that we do day to day. As you will see, the purchase contracting services, the majority of that is related to town center planning. So putting out an RFP to hire an architect firm to come in, help us do site plan work. It's a very involved process. The area that we're looking at is a very large area. And so we anticipate that's going to be a hefty price tag. You'll also see that there is a decrease from 21 to 22. I just want to remind the mayor and council that the majority of that $700,000 in this current fiscal year was from our CARES Act funding for the small business grant program. And so that's why you see the difference in pricing. As far as supplies, supplies includes not only just paper and pencils and things of that nature, but it also includes things like the utilities for both of our Collapse South locations. So our water, sewer, electricity, natural gas, all of that comes out of that $40,000 number. So for a total operating budget of $418 for the year. Next slide. That budget supports 2 positions, the Economic Development Director and the Tourism Manager. And so we will retain those 2 positions in this next fiscal year. Next slide. So just some goals and objectives for our Red Oak District. We're going to be working and have already worked with DCA to submit accreditation application to DCA. That just starts the process of us going through the accreditation. It's usually about a 12 to 18 month process to gain accreditation through DCA. And so the application is the first step in that. In the next month or 2, we'll be bringing some recommendations to the mayor and council on how to move forward formally with that. And so you'll be getting some updates on that in the coming months. One of those things that we'll be doing is establishing what are the exact boundaries of the district. And so that will be something that will be approved by mayor and council. And then creating a promotional calendar of activities. One of the main hallmarks of a Main Street program is to create positive interactions within a district. So obviously we know that there's some challenges in both Red Oak and Old National. And so the Main Street program is designed specifically to help counteract some of those negative interactions and create positive interactions. And so one of the things that we'll be doing before the end of the fiscal year is kicking off the Red Oak Arts Festival, which will take place on September the 18th. And so there'll be a whole calendar of events related to both Main Street programs. Next slide. Again, this falls in line with the recommendation that was made for our reporting purposes to DCA. So Red Oak will have its own operating and personnel budget. And as you see, this is just our first year doing this, so there's no previous budgets. And so as we get more detail about what are the programming, the things that we're going to do as we move forward from year to year, these numbers will change, but this will just get us the ability to start going in the right direction as we look at doing programming for the upcoming year. Next slide. And the Red Oak position, the Red Oak budget supports 1 Main Street manager position that operates full time. Again, this is carried over from the current fiscal year, so this person is currently on staff. If you go to the next slide, please. And this is related to our Old National District program. Again, same kind of similar things. We're building both of these programs as we go forward. But one additional thing that's for Old National that is not currently for Red Oak is working with the Department of Community Development. As you know, the city was awarded an LCI grant from Atlanta Regional Commission, right at about $150,000. And so we tend to be actively involved in that process and the development of that LCI. So that's going to be a great opportunity for us to really think about Old National as it moves forward in the next 10, 15, 20 years. Next slide. Again, similar to the Red Oak budget, we've separated this out for reporting purposes. Their budgets are almost identical, with the exception of we did add a few more dollars to the Old National budget to help support the LCI initiatives. So whether that be just doing some extra level of promotion and marketing about meetings and things of that nature. So that's why you see a slight difference in the budget there. Next slide. And again, that budget supports one Main Street manager that works full-time in the Old National District. And with that, that concludes the economic development presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
I see Councilmember Khalid in the queue. Councilmember Khalid. Is there anybody else? If not, we'll go to Fire.
I don't show anyone else with their hands raised.
Okay. We'll go to Chief Chad Jones for the Fire presentation.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to just blurt out. I pressed the button. May I please be acknowledged?
Yes, Councilmember Baker.
Yes, Mr. Pike, thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to ask a quick question regarding the Old National Main Street individual. Have those hires been made yet?
Yes, sir. That person has been on board. They were currently kind of doing the rounds now, but that person has been on board at this point 2 weeks.
Okay. Is it any way possible that we could set up a meeting, or that individual can be introduced to the rest of the council if we don't already know him? I know I didn't know that.
Sure. We can definitely set up some meetings, and we'll coordinate calendars in the next week or so.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Rowell?
Councilmember Reeves.
Yeah, Mr. Pike, one question. Where are we at to the completion of finishing the Main Street office and the suite?
So that Main Street manager will be housed in the Collapse South. We are in the process of finalizing, as you know, the mayor and council approved the lease. We're going to be bringing back some information at the next council meeting with an update on that. But it's our goal to have that completed in October, November of this year.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions? Chief Chad Jones for the Fire presentation. Okay, Khalid, Councilman Khalid, I had a follow-up question. Councilmember Khalid, I had previously called you. If you can unmute your phone, we can't hear you. Okay.
No, I think there's an error. I don't have any questions for this presenter. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. Chief Jones.
Good morning, Council. Thank y'all for this opportunity to present our budget. Currently sitting here in the office, I want to start out by introducing real quick the two new deputy chiefs of fire rescue, and then they will be stepping out so I can unmask. But the first deputy chief is Dr. Hilda Moses. If you come around. She is our deputy chief of support services and logistics.
Good morning. Good morning, Council. It's an honor to be here, and I'm looking forward to serving the city of South Fulton. And I'm available at any time should any of you have any questions. I'll be available by email, phone, and of course, in my office.
And the second deputy chief is Chief Duron Pat Wilson, who will be over field operations and training. Chief.
Good morning, and very excited about being part of the city of South Fulton. Again, looking forward to serving this amazing community, and being a part of this amazing city government, and obviously being with my good friend Chief Jones and Chief Holder and others inside this department. So again, it's kind of pull back on what Chief Holder said. That we're here, we're available. Any questions you have of us, feel free to reach out anytime, and really excited to be on board. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Now can go on. All right, for streaming, I'm gonna go ahead and stop my video. All right, so thank y'all. Real quick for everybody, the update. Team's working really hard. We're watching Fred as it moves through. Current situation, we still have some strong bands that are pushing through, causing some flooding. Currently, we don't have a lot of trees down. It seemed like it kind of went around us, which is a good thing. But this morning, about 5 o'clock, we were notified that counties south of us, Coweta, Meriwether, and Troup went under a tornado warning. That's what prompted us to contact city administration and ask for them to push back the start time. We didn't want our citizens or our employees trying to drive to work if we had tornadoes, trees down, and things like that. So hopefully we are actively monitoring it, and it'll push out about 1 o'clock, it seems, and we can really get out and evaluate any of the low-lying areas and flooding. So just wanted to give you a quick update with that. So again, jump back into the budget. This budget we're pushing forward is really people-focused, as you'll see, and mission-driven. My team developed a new mission statement, which is about to provide the highest level of customer service, enhancing quality of life, fire suppression, emergency medical services, community risk, reduction, and education. So as you can see in our goals and objectives here on the first slide, we are currently running about 10 vacancies. We are actively recruiting. We have 8 people that are in the process right now. And hopefully by the end of the year, have all of our vacancies filled. You'll see on our numbers, we kept our head count the same as 186. We did do some reclassifications and putting people in some of our support services where we needed them. We are working with Lci Grant and pushing for all of our administrative jobs and other job descriptions to be updated and move forward. Also, we're currently in the process of an assistant chief, battalion chief, captain, lieutenant, and sergeant process. So a lot of promotion is going to be going on in the next 3 to 6 months. Everybody's excited about that, upward mobility. We also want to improve our mental health initiative. That's a real big push right now in the fire service. I know yesterday we had a department head meeting. They were talking about EAP. We have in our budget to bring in a psychologist to help us with our critical incident stress management team. We're working with Pastor Henry. So a lot of things on different fronts, and also with PD to assure that our employees have all the resources they need to handle the job and what we do day in and day out. I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that firefighters deal with cancer. So we are pushing more in the cancer reduction initiative. We do have physicals, cancer screenings in our budget. We're currently going through that now, but there's other things we can do with gear and procedures, policies to update that. We're also trying to develop a comprehensive personnel plan. As you saw in our capital, there was at least 3 stations that we would like to build over the next 5 years, probably 5 to 7 years, add additional equipment. The goal is, again, to improve our ISO, improve response times. So we need that comprehensive personnel plan. So we have that to go forward and know who we need. It takes us approximately a year to hire, train, and put into the field. So we got to really plan ahead. Also, we're looking at all of our policies and procedures. A lot of them were outdated. We're actively pushing out policies almost weekly now, updating, making sure that we have the most up-to-date policies and procedures, and also looking at our hiring practices to make sure currently we only have about 1 to 2% female. We would like to really diversify our hiring and retention. Professional development, one of the things I'm going to jump right into is we've already been approached by the Westlake principal, Mr. Adams, to partner with them. There is a program that's free to high school juniors and seniors, bringing in a cadet program, but that dual enrollment so that they can do fire classes, be working towards their associate degree, and before they even graduate. It's something that we can partner with and really look at our young people and give them a career path so that we can hire them right out of high school. So that's a program we're really excited about starting and launching hopefully here in the next calendar year. Also, we're looking to improve our training and the training delivery. One of the things that's in our budget with technology, working with Neymar Strickland, is improving our training platform, going to Target Solutions, which will also help with our ISO rating. The emergency preparedness and response, again, the deployment model, we're 90 square miles and we have 9 stations. That's an average of about 10 square miles per station. We ran almost 13,000 calls to date. You just do the math. We need more stations. So we want to set some the benchmarks. NFPA 1710 actually is a national standard that we're going to start pushing forward. Right now in the strategic plan, our response is about 8 minutes. We would like to see that reduced, and we're going to come up with a plan with it and metrics. Donald Tom spoke earlier on our EMS expansion plan, bringing in some of the smaller rescues. We have engines, the large engines that are running thousands of calls. We get the smaller rescues strategically placed where we need them. We're hoping to launch in the next 30 to 60 days what we're going to term as a pilot program to make sure all our policies, procedures are in place, get more personnel trained, and bring up, once we get those new apparatus, 3 is what we're looking at in our high call volume areas to reduce our response times and also help to reduce the wear and tear on some of our larger apparatus. Next slide, please. Next slide. Kind of got ahead of myself. My slides are a little bit different. Sorry about that. Facilities, equipment, and technology. Again, that's been a big ticket item. I heard you already talk about it. Yes, we're working with procurement. We're trying to get out all of the old apparatus and basically just old equipment, get rid of it, sell it, whatever we can do to clean these up. Also, we have beautification. We're trying to do at all our stations. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. I can't thank you enough for the vote a couple weeks ago on the URA money, working with general services, getting the contracts out for new generators, new kitchens, new bathrooms, painting, landscape, beautification, all of that. There are a lot of things we're working on. I'm going to go ahead and one of them is, I know Councilwoman Gilliard is Station 8. We are working with general services and a landscape architect. One of the things, the erosion, there's 2 areas of really bad erosion. So we really need to look into what we need to do there. So we are planning on doing something. We just got to get quotes back and see where we are. So go ahead and address that right out off the bat. One of the things you see there, design stations have playgrounds and community rooms. So as we develop these stations, especially the one in District 7, looking to make sure we're acquiring enough land to also incorporate a park, maybe a splash pad in conjunction with the station being there. So really looking at being focal points for communities, whether they need a safe place, whether they're coming for the playground, or if they need a community room for training, it'll be dual purpose. So those are things that we're looking at with these architects as we develop, is having multi-use, not just the fire station, but incorporating other things that we can do with other partners, whether it's parks and recs, general services, CRR, or anything like that. So, all right, next slide. Our public information. We are looking at moving one of our firefighters into helping us with communication internally and externally to streamline communications, where things like this with emergency warning, weather alerts, community events, we're working hand in hand with Gary to make sure. Also developing that 5 and 20-year strategic plan that we hope to get to y'all soon within this fiscal year, so y'all can see where we're projected to go in not only the next 5 years, but the next 20 years. as you know, stations, apparatus, personnel are expensive, and we want to be fiscally responsible and be planning well ahead. And also to continue to improve our ISO rating from a 3. We're hoping next year to get them in, see where we're at, going towards a 2, and then eventually to a 1, which will be the highest, and then also looking at accreditation. Next slide, please. All right, our customer service is one of the areas that we're really focusing on. We've moved positions over there. We got 2 captain positions that we're currently trying to fill. And again, some of the things that we've heard y'all want, the community wants, and we want to bring them back. COVID has stalled us a little bit, but bringing back our CERT program, bringing back our Citizens Fire Academy. There's programs we can direct just towards our seniors, community CPR, and then again, implement a Cadet Explorer program for the youth to get them involved in public safety. Is all things that are on our agenda that we hope to accomplish in the next year, get these programs up and running. Next slide, please. Just some of the accomplishments, y'all can read these, but really just wanted to go over some of the things that they were able to accomplish in the last year, even through COVID. We have been able to reorg our department. We've been able to hire personnel. We have the 2 new deputy chiefs. We also have 2 new fire prevention officers, which are going to service the FIB corridor to help make sure that inspections are going off, education's going off, CERT's going off. We looked at a lot of people that had the credentials to come and help us and hit the ground running. Also, we've hired 30 new recruits throughout this last year to fill those vacancies. Again, like I said, we still have about 10 to 12. It's kind of fluctuating, but we do have 8 currently in the process and should be bringing them on shortly. Also, the physicals have all been scheduled. There's 2 phases. Phase 1 has been completed. Phase 2, which is coming up with the cancer screening next month, actually. We actually were awarded several different grants, and it totaled about $4.5 million, and they were for personnel training and equipment. And then professional development, we did complete a sergeant's exam. We have completed several new training initiatives, which are listed there to increase our response and our capabilities. Also, we're taking over FIB, the hazmat, and then the ARF response. We still have response to Charlie Brown for airport rescue. With emergency preparedness, we have worked with several of our surrounding municipalities and have updated the IGAs. We have also worked with County 911 to make sure they're inputted into the CAD and in the what they call the run cards. That way we get credit with ISO for that. That was one of the components that was missing. And again, we had not inspected hydrants in the city for about 3 years. We have completed hydrant inspection. We're going back, doing some re-inspecting, updating all of our run cards. We're painting some. We've gotten some really good responses from the citizens that we took care of their old hydrants. Again, we're out there still going back painting and doing things like that, weather permitting. And then we've implemented a pre-fire inspection program with our company officers. That was another piece that we were missing in the ISO that we're doing now. And as we're updating to image trend and our technology, we'll be able to input that and have better data and information when we respond. Again, I already had mentioned we'd respond to over 13,000 calls. Next slide, please. That's the image trend I was talking about. The new training platform, which we're about to launch, is Target Solutions. We had finished all of the background work to implement it. We are collaborating still with General Services for all those station repairs. We have purchased, they're being built 2 new pumpers. Thank you for that. And then we're also looking at the new inspectors. I did hear y'all talk about the going away from trucks and everything. One thing we did, we have purchased the 2 Ford Explorer, which are a combination hybrid response vehicles. Very nice. We do have them here and they're being lettered and outfitted. And we have coming to us 4 of the Kia Sportage for community risk reduction. One thing that want to explain too is under the state contract, which we use to purchase our vehicles, running in the same thing that general populations running into. Nobody has cars. So one of our goals is to go more efficient The Kia Sportage are low emission vehicles. They are gas, but they go about 30 to 40 miles per gallon. So for our inspectors out there, it'll hopefully have some cost savings. Also, their maintenance program and their warranties are very, very good. So hope to keep those down and keep those for a long, long time. Also, we've upgraded some of our stuff for EMS. Next slide, please. And in our fire marshal, they have been doing a yeoman's job keeping up with everything, but they've also, for the community, held 2 toy drives. They've done 12 in-person community events, even through COVID. They've inspected over 1,400 businesses and construction sites, and they've reviewed over 120 plans. And one thing we wanted to do is give a shout out to Lieutenant Rowe, who was elected as one of the Georgia Inspector Association members at large. So we have a member on the board to help us to push some legislation through. And then again, we're continuing our smoke alarm program. So didn't have these slides, but as you can see, our personnel, we did not add any headcount, but as far as the purchase contract services, some of that is our contracts for our medical director and other components that we need as far as updating equipment. Our supplies have stayed about the same. Debt services are those that where we're doing some lease purchasing. And then our total operating budget was actually doubled this year to help us accomplish some of our goals and initiatives. And so the total budget did go up about $2.6 million. Again, I told you we did not raise headcount. We started the year at 186. We're going into next year at 186. We did add positions and reclassify. So you see that there's an assistant chief. We have 3 of those now. Administrative specialist 2, we've added 1 there. Our fire captains went down, but our fire lieutenants have gone up for that middle manager. Also our fire sergeants. And again, you can see where the firefighter number was reduced, but we're not reducing the number of people in the field or on the apparatus. We still have 4 assigned to every apparatus. The section chief you see there will be over training and directing all of our training activities. So I will take any questions that y'all have at this time. And thank y'all very much.
In the queue, we have Councilwoman Gilliard, Khalid, and Councilman Reeves in that order. And please be mindful, we're scheduled to break at 11:45.
Okay.
Councilwoman Gilliard.
Yeah, I'll be very, very quick. Thank you so much for your presentation. As I went through everything, I'm so excited that you are including performance metrics in your plan for the year. I think it's really important, especially in terms of knowing where you are and what you need and what you don't need. And then the second, well, just overall, so much of everything that you said in your presentation is devoted to the staff and to the community. And I just want to really commend you for that, because I just think it is an excellent approach, especially because it's the people's city and the staff are the people that provide the services for the city. So thank you so very much for such a thorough presentation.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, we're people focused, so that's what we got to do, and that's what we're going to do and focus there. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gilliard. Councilmember Khalid.
Hey, thank you so much. Echo all Councilwoman Gilliard's sentiments, especially the youth involvement. On that note, I didn't see the Firehouse. Are we going to be getting a Firehouse? Did I miss that?
I am very sorry, Councilman. I should have put that in with everything going on. And I actually had it in my notes to mention that. Thank y'all. So the Firehouse was already approved. So thank you. We're getting quotes on it. Donna Dingler, our fire marshal, has 3 quotes, and we're going to be moving forward. And once we do the process, it's a 30 or 60 day build out on a brand new smokehouse that we'll be taking around to all the 3rd graders and doing at community events and things like that. And we already have a location that will be housing it, so it will not be sitting outside getting weathered. So sorry about that omission, but we are in the process and we should have it no later than end of the year.
Yay. Next question, and this is sort of a capital improvements question as well, but there is no fire station in District 6, which is fine. I'm not advocating specifically for a District 6 fire station, but there, in terms of fire training, we have had conversations long-term in our zoning and comprehensive plan to begin building above 4 stories. And so is there are there plans for that in the budget to train on, I guess, high-rise fire training, or to send people someplace to do that? And then secondly, is there any kind of different equipment that we would need and a different kind of fire station to house that equipment that we would need?
Trying to formulate how to answer. You had so much in there. So as far as fire service, we don't look at anything to be quote unquote high rise until you get 7 stories or above. So 4 stories, 5 stories, we are training and equipped to fight fire. We have already reached out to a company and have a quote for large scale fires, warehouse fires, which we incorporated in FIB, and anything that would be anything 3-4 commercial grade to make sure we are the most up to date. As far as equipment, we have all the equipment we currently have. We can't address any of the fires. Do we need more? Yes. So that is in that in the capital where the 3 fire stations, one specifically would be in District 2 and District 6, which do not have fire stations, to make sure we have them there. There is a build out to where we may move a fire station because it may not be in the correct location that we need now, and add those other components. And as we build out, one of the things that we noted in the Georgia Tech study, we only have 2 what they call the ladder trucks. They recommend we have 5 to 6. And those would be needed for those 4 and 5 story buildings. So strategically locate, place those. We would like to see about 6 in our city, which I think we would cover all of our risk. And that's what we're going to be doing, is a community risk in those areas, working with land development and what could be put there so that we are planning for the future. But great questions. We are looking at everything, just like with the inheritance of the river, working with PD for our Swiftwater dive team, because that is now an inherent risk for us. We actually just partnered with Chattahoochee Hills Fire Department Sunday and made a rescue off of the river. Someone had broken down on a jet ski and was stuck, and we were able to help mitigate that rescue just as early as Sunday. So it's out there. We know the risk, and we are training and planning for it. That's going to be all built into that 5 and 20 year plan. So y'all know what's coming.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to be sure that we were thinking holistically as we are building up the equipment that we needed. Lastly, you mentioned in your presentation the Chaplains Department. Does that now fall under fire and EMS, or where is that department now?
So my understanding that the department head chaplain was going to be moved up under the police. Pastor Henry did give an overview that he has, I believe it's 5 kind of branches, and that his chaplains are trained in every division and will rotate like every 2 to 3 months. So we are steadily working with them and the ones for fire service. And we did put in the budget for them to have training. So I'm working with Keith Meadows to make sure that anything they need for public safety for the city, that we can support them, whether it's uniforms, but they will fall up under PD's budget.
Thank you. And just, I know that right now they have sort of an all volunteer department, and I just want to make sure that we are giving them the resources they need to be effective, especially since we have been using them so much during this COVID season. But thank you.
Yes. And there's actually a state directive under a House bill. And so we've already looked into getting them free training through the state for the critical incident stress management team. And so that deals with, it could be public safety, it could be Parks and Rec, anybody that need them, they'll have the training, and we're going to bring that in for free.
Thank you, Chief Jones. We had a question for Council Member Reeves.
Yes, thank you, Chief Jones, for your presentation. This is awesome. I'm glad to see that the CERT program will be installed as a CERT member. I think that is great. Citizens Fire Academy, I think that is wonderful as well. I would like to see the extension of the school program for Westlake to go extended also to Banneker High School, as we have some recruits who came out of high school who are with the fire station now. And but quickly, is that you stated that there will be construction on 3 new stations. Is this new stations or existing stations that's going to be demolished and reconstructed?
So there'll be a couple of things. Thank you. And the high school program, working with the principals, we'll be working with all high schools within the city limits. Once we launch the program, you just need a kind of a point to start, and that's what Westlake has already reached out to us. But that program would be encompassing all high schools. So I just wanted to make that clear that we wouldn't leave any high school kid out that wanted to be in a cadet program or in this program. They would have opportunities. 3 new stations. So in the 20-year plan, we have some that would be renovated and probably relocated. But at this point, those 3 that we have are critical needs and in areas that are not serviced or have long response times. So working with finance, they have kind of spaced them out so you don't get hit all at once. But we're looking at the land acquisition for those 3 and then going through the design phase and then starting construction. And then we've kind of prioritized them as our needs are. Training, again, we got to have trained, qualified personnel working with PD. So that is going to be our top priority, is getting that facility with training. The second would be the admin. And then the third would be the other station. But again, we're looking at growth. So those are completely new. So we would go from 9 stations to 12 stations.
Awesome. That's awesome. So, and then we talk about reduction of response times. We do know fire station number 7 services one portion of the community going down Fairwood and Mallory, and fire stations number 1 services the other half. We do know that CSX, who blocks the train, blocks those tracks consistently, and that does causes time for emergency response vehicles. Where are we at to just relocate or reallocating the service of Station 7s up to the constituency on Stacks Road, going into Mallory and Fairwood, and doesn't have to rely on the CSX train that blocks it all the time, and just going with that for the time reduction plan?
Yes, sir. That's the one station we definitely know we need to relocate, and that's going to be in our capital improvement plan over the next 20 years as to when we can fiscally do it. But that is one thing we're looking at doing, is moving Station 7. As most people know, basically the front door is all that sits in the city. The rest of it is Union City. So they actually have to cross the street to actually respond within the city. So location of it, when it was all Fulton County, it was in a great location. Now that it's Union City and City of South Fulton, it is not. So yes, sir, moving it northward. We're looking at locations for it to be moved to, and then using Station 7 as maybe our location for all of our community risk reduction, housing, the smokehouse, and just their kind of operation center right there, possibly a museum. Those are all in the works in the 20-year plan. But if you find land, let me know, Donald Toms know. We're actively out there driving around, looking and talking, because as people know, they're not building any more land, and land's just getting more expensive. So that's why in our capital, you see some that maybe only 300,000, but that's for us to acquire the land. We may not put a building there for another year to 3 years, but if we own the land, then it's ours and we can do the design and everything. So any help within your communities, please let us know if you got land and we'll go look at it.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. And we will be on that today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chief Jones. To make sure that we stay on schedule for today, we have a break allotted. It's 11:48. We will break until 12. And then we'll resume with the presentation from municipal courts.
Thank you all.
Actually, my hand was in the queue and I'm okay with waiting afterwards. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
If it's, yes.
Yes.
Councilman Baker, if it's related to fire, let's go ahead and I'm speaking. I'm going to let you speak. If it's related to fire, let's go ahead and take it now.
But I can wait till after the break, but I did have a question for Chief.
I would prefer,
Okay,
since we're on fire, go ahead now.
It's not working. Yes, thank you, and I'm sorry for holding everyone up. Real quick, the Chaplains Program, as Councilman Khalid mentioned, amazing program, amazing work, and I'm glad that you guys are providing training along with law enforcement. But upon the inception of it, and I know that Councilwoman Willis is not present, we had it under the city manager's office for a reason, albeit the training that could be provided by law enforcement and fire is helpful. But because they work so intimately with the community and because of the chain of command with us not directly dealing with department heads in that manner, it was under the city manager's office. Even if they're sharing budgets, are they still, who would they be reporting directly to as far as our access to them? And why is it not the city manager?
Thank you, Councilmember Baker. I was going to go through all of that when I have my presentation on Thursday, but I'll be glad to address it now. I just believe that it would be in the city's best interest that that particular office of the chaplain be moved under the police department. Right now, that particular employee is post-certified, has various trainings, and with me not having a good understanding of those type of law enforcement type trainings, I think that it would be better suited under the police department. So right now, it's my expectation to move it. That's my recommendation to the council, that we relocate that particular office to police effective October 1st. And it would be up to the chief who the chaplain would report to.
So he wouldn't even report to the chief? It would be, okay, well, I guess I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. Okay. I think it would be best if we just waited till your report. But yeah, I mean, there were reasons and there was a big deal a couple of years ago as to why Mr. Donald, but to the chief, it makes it even more difficult. For example, I had a 14-year-old who the chaplain program showed up and showed out for. It was amazing, and everybody was asking all of these questions, all the positive feedback, and I just don't want the red tape to create a distance between the people and that department, or the representatives from council who deal directly with them, and that was one of the major concerns as to the inception of this department, and I don't want them to get lost in a chain of command of how we are able to access them, because they're serving the community to a great extent. But we'll deal with it when we address your report.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So to adjust for time, it's 11:52. Let's come back at just say 12:10. Just if that's okay with everybody. If you just mute your phones, and we'll resume at 12.
Thank you. Thank you all, everybody.
Recording stopped.